I am honored that you considered me to join
Oh yeah.
you fellas. You know what I'm saying?
Man, I can see who you are. You know what I'm saying? If you pay attention to people, you can see who they are. You can see where their heart is. You may not know the details, but you can see generally where their heart is and what direction they're going in. And
Mhm.
so, even if you weren't necessarily going in the same direction or have the same type of mindset, I still welcome your viewpoint. You know what I mean? Even
Even
if it was
a
different.
contrast of opinion. I get it. I dig it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, because Imma tell you, we can't be so closed-minded that we don't accept other people's opinions. We have to listen so that we can grow. We listen to those other opinions, even though it may not necessarily be something that I agree with. If I listen to it, who knows, through your explanation, I may find some use out of it,
Right.
or it may educate me on a different route. It may teach me something new.
You know what's crazy is that I came to a realization maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. Every conflict, every war, every fight, every argument all started with a disagreement. Every
Mhm,
last one of them.
mhm, mhm,
And instead of saying, I agree to disagree, or, okay, well, I see where you're going with this. I see what you're talking about. Okay, now instead of trying to see the other person's perspective, which is what people don't naturally do, it turns into a fight. It turns into an argument. It turns into a fight. That turns into a war, to a conflict and into a
mhm.
war. So, um, one thing I have learned, I've learned how to respect everybody, even when it comes to religion. I've learned how to respect other people's belief and faith because everybody. I mean, so I've been reading the Apocrypha over the last
Okay.
5 6 years.
Mhm.
Um, and matter of fact, I just got a book. I ordered an Ethiopian Bible off of um, TikTok. Um,
Okay.
but I had ordered the Book of Enoch off Amazon like 3 4 years ago, and actually,
Mhm.
and it's a really good book, and it kind of to me, because I've read the Bible from front to back at least 5 times in my life, and that's just
Mhm.
from starting from Genesis and going to Revelations,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I still felt like there were a few holes in it.
Mhm.
There were still some questions I need answered. And as I'm reading up the Apocrypha, like the Book of Enoch, Adam and Eve had a book. I read that one.
Mhm.
I'm reading part of Jasher now. Um,
Mhm.
and then it's telling a lot of the stories about, you know what I'm saying, what's going on. And it's like, okay, well, and that's not to say that the Bible is incorrect, but it is to say it does warrant some investigation to make sense to say, well, you know what, let's see. Um, hmm, it would make sense, especially when we talking about slavery and our oppressors. It would make sense for them because the Bible, the original Christian faith, or that's what they call it, but the original faith of a believer, a follower of Jesus comes from Ethiopia. That's where it
Mhm.
originated from. And of
Mhm.
course, being that we were enslaved as a people, of course, our slave
Mhm.
masters, after they've changed our name, they changed our families, shipped our families
Mhm.
away from each other. Of course, they could use our religion and whitewash it to
Mhm.
control us.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So, and that's not, and again, it's not, I'm not down in anybody's faith because I used to be in church heavy. I used to, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like, and now, I've opened up my mind. My third eye has opened up a lot more. My perspective is a lot. It's it's wider. It's a wider spectrum.
Mhm.
Now, that's not to say that it gives us a need to sin or anything like that. But it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
if we under because there were 33 books removed from the Bible. That's what we have the
Mhm.
King James. That's why 66 is supposed to be 99 total.
Mhm. Mhm.
So with that, and it made me wonder what. Why did they say these books was lost? That they weren't lost, they were removed
Remove.
in order to put a hedge of control, if you will, somewhat control. That control but not visual control, not apparent control, but control,
Mhm.
enough control, just like
Mhm.
to see, okay, we go to churches and we see, I'm sorry, if I'm going off the record or going off the subject, let me,
No, no, you're going to another show that I was planning on having. So let's go with it. Let's
okay,
let's go
okay.
with it.
Yeah, yeah.
I got a
So,
question for you. I got a
yo,
question before you move forward.
sure,
So you were talking about the changes and the things that were done to either remove or to control or whatever the purpose was. So are you talking about when it was handed to the slaves here in the US?
correct.
Okay. So I have a question for you. Do you think it was altered prior to?
Well, from what I read in history, the the Canaan, the original, the Christian Canaan that we have right now was changed
Mhm,
by King James in the
mhm,
15th century, 1600s.
mhm,
That was right
mhm.
before we have the history that we know of slavery. That was
Yeah.
right before that. So,
Mhm,
um, of course, they brought the Bibles back. And you know what's crazy? I think I do believe it was done before that because we have never, I firmly believe we the promised people.
mhm,
I firmly
mhm,
believe that.
mhm,
And
mhm,
you know, and a good way to control the narrative, if you will, because just like the Egyptians in the book of, but the Israelites in the book of Exodus, we've
mhm,
been enduring and still enduring a form of slavery for about 450 years now.
mhm. Are you a Hebrew Israelite?
I don't necessarily connect myself with any of these groups. Now, I will listen to what other people say. I do listen to what
Mhm,
they got to say. I've gotten a pamphlet or two that I've sat down and talked with some Hebrew Israelite brothers.
mhm,
So
mhm.
there's a lot of stuff that I agree with. Some things
Yeah,
I'm not necessarily sure about. I ain't gonna say I
yeah,
disagree, but I'm not necessarily sure about. Like, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
again, I'm still in the learning process right now. My horizon, my brain is still like opening up. Even
As well,
reading
it should always be. Your mind
right,
should always be
right,
open and welcome to new knowledge. You don't have to accept it as your truth, but you should always be open to new knowledge.
right. The first of all, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all knowledge, is what we hear, what we've heard in the scriptures, what we've read. And being able to, because like, okay, the book of Enoch, for example, it opened my mind to understand Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, Indian mythology,
Mhm,
Japanese, Chinese mythology, Asian mythology. It opened my mind up, and I said, wait a minute, okay, now it's again, that was one of them connectors, one of them things that, oh, that makes sense. So that's why
mhm.
the Egyptians had Ra and
Yeah,
Set.
yeah,
The
yeah,
Greeks had Zeus and
yeah,
Poseidon, and you know,
yeah.
but that's the names they gave to them because these watchers that came down to earth, because the Bible even talks about the angels came down to earth and they saw that the women were fair and
Mhm,
they took them as wives. But the book of Enoch takes it way deeper. Is that because that's the
mhm.
scripture we see? That's all they talk about. They blow past that. But
Right
to
past it does.
understand, they blow right past it in the Bible. But to understand the nature of everything, that's because the Watchers they gave us weaponry, they gave us voodoo, they gave us tarot card reading, they gave us astrology, they gave us
Mhm,
all these things that originally God had not planned for us to have. Maybe not yet, but not at that point.
mhm,
So
mhm,
them coming down from heaven and swearing that oath and coming down to lay with women and taking wives, they forfeited their right to the kingdom. So they put themselves in the
mhm.
same position as Lucifer and the first
Yeah.
angels that left. So
Mhm,
so it was like I said, and of course they were like gods to the people. Of course, that's why they were giants. That's why their children became giants. And not all these giants were human form. Some of them were reptilian. Hence the
mhm.
dinosaurs we see in the museums. So
Okay.
and then you'll see a picture on the internet of they found a giant's body fossil, but then they say, oh no, that's a hoax. It's like,
Mhm, mm.
no,
You just
no. So it's
you
just
don't know what's these days.
right, and just like they swear they know everything, but they steady telling us they've only Like the sea. They've only explored 5% of the sea on this planet. 5%?
Mm-hmm.
Then what you're telling me is a whole another 95 that you don't know what's going down. You don't know what's down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
probably the reason why we can't breathe down there or in space is because we were never meant to be in there.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know, that's why we can't breathe there. You know, God made
Mm-hmm.
provision for where we were supposed to be, where we were supposed to be. You know, just like
Mm-hmm.
so it just makes sense. Just like that, you remember that submarine like a year ago, 2 years ago, the small submarine that went down below the earth and went in the water and it got crushed. And the people in it, a billionaire and a couple like five other people, it got
Yeah. Yeah.
crushed
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
pressure
Yeah.
of the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Again, places we not supposed to be, you know, or some of these alleged space missions where they went up into space and then all of a sudden, like Apollo, whatever the number is, it blew up or whatever. You're not supposed to be up there. You're not supposed to be in
Yeah.
that arena. That's why it's not safe for us to breathe out there because just like underwater, it's not safe for us to breathe because we're not supposed to be down. So sometimes
Exactly.
the exploration it does broaden the horizons, it does open up some things, but some things we wasn't meant to touch, we wasn't supposed to touch. Just like the book of Enoch, we wasn't supposed to touch a whole bunch of stuff. At least God was not ready for us to touch that at that time. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the humans needed to know how to fight these giants that was being created because they was eating all our crops, eating all our land, and they started eating the people. So
Mm-hmm.
and they called themselves gods, which is
So
why
you.
which is why the flood was 40 days and 40 nights because he had to
Mm.
drown the giants. See,
Mm.
we didn't understand that when it first happened. It was 40 days and 40 nights because it had to rain long enough to kill these 600 foot monsters that's walking the earth. So 40 days and 40 nights was enough time to drown to where they couldn't, even if they got on a mountain, they couldn't survive. That they would drown in the waters. So
Wow.
again, putting putting the stuff together, okay, that wow, that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like reading, and I'll give you another example, the book of Jasher. Do you know that we heard the story about Abraham, how he got to go sacrifice Isaac after he waited 25 years for him to finally come, and he had to go, and God said, go sacrifice him on, the
Yeah.
mountain or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did you know that that was actually another Job moment where Satan came to God and started saying, okay, well, how about, I've been
You let me
walking
test
back and
them.
forth up and down in the earth, and God suggested Abraham.
Mm.
You take his son in a conversation. You take his son away. I'll make him curse you. Okay, let's do it. Just like Job,
Mm-hmm.
he knew Abraham would be faithful, but again, the King James Bible does not explain that that was a Job moment like that. It doesn't tell
Mm-mm.
you that.
Mm-mm. And to a scholar who would read it and study it, you would understand it to be that. But
Mhm.
yes, you're right. It doesn't say that.
Right? Because all we got about is Job. It talks about Job, and then the Bible don't talk about Job no more. But
Mm-hmm.
this whole situation was, you know what I'm saying? And then not only that, but Sarah, because the whole time he was taking him there, the devil was tempting him, like gave him
Mm-hmm.
put a river in front of him, and Abraham was like, "Wait a minute, ain't no body of water here. I'm gonna keep walking," because he tried to deter him from going up there. So it was
Mm-hmm.
man, man. Again, holes being filled. I'm pretty good at my understanding. I've always been. Thank God for that. But
Mm-hmm.
I remember asking God what got me on the Apocrypha was it's like, Lord, well, I feel like I'm missing something. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like something was lacking. And then one day, because I like to watch battle rap. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube looking at battle rap, and then all of a sudden I see this Book of Enoch. I'm like, oh, it's in video form. I can listen to it. Oh, let me go ahead and
Mm-hmm.
let me listen. And
Right.
like, so I'm trying to see if I can get. I want to get to all of them in my lifetime, if God permit. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because I want to know. I mean, you also hear in church they say eat the whole roll. Well, how can I eat the whole
Mm-hmm.
roll if I don't have the whole roll to eat?
Yeah. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
does that work?
Yeah.
And it's funny because you said something about difference of opinion when we started. we was in North Chicago a couple of weeks ago out there, because my wife's brother had just passed. And
Hmm.
we went to a friend's birthday party out there the night before the ceremony or the memorial. And they were, I guess I was standing with these guys. They was talking about marriage. One guy was he was talking about giving up on his marriage. And then the
Mm.
other guy was like, man, you being stupid. And then the dude said, well, Jesus never got married, blah, blah, blah. And then I could tell he had like a traditional church vibe on him. So they started
Hmm.
arguing back and forth. And then he came to me and he said, my brother, what do you believe? I said,
Hmm.
well, I have been reading the Apocrypha. He said, oh man, I don't want to hear that. And he walked out and left. He left
Yeah.
the whole party,
Yeah.
left the house mad,
Yeah. Yeah.
upset.
Yeah.
And again, that comes from people. I remember reading a scripture that said, and I ain't trying to barrage you with a whole bunch of scriptures and nothing like that, but
No, no, you're good.
I remember reading a scripture that said, you can't put new wine in old wineskins. You have to get new
Yeah.
wineskins. Jesus said that because the people who have lived this way all their lives, 30, 40, 50 years, they not going to hear what you got to say. They think the old stuff better.
Hmm.
So, and that's why, God is, raising up people to just like what you're doing right now. He's raising up people to
Hmm.
bring about lift. Okay, we got somebody, it's time for somebody else to take the reins because we got to take this thing to the next level. It's got to
Yeah.
move forward. It's progressive. You know what I'm saying? So, and the dude, so like I said, the dude was really, I could tell he had that type of vibe. He didn't want to hear nothing. He didn't want to hear nothing outside of what he hears at church every Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because, I mean, I believe to me, myself, my faith has to be strong within me. If my faith is not strong within me, then anybody can turn me from what I believe.
Yes.
So if you don't want to hear stuff, you don't want to listen to stuff. If you that means you to me that means you're really easily turned from your faith. So is your faith
Hmm.
then your faith is not as strong as it should be. Because I know a lot of
Yeah.
preachers preach to their people, don't even listen to people, don't even conversate with people. I'm like, eh,
Hmm.
but my faith is strong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ain't nobody gonna
Yeah.
turn me from what I believe.
Yeah.
I've had
Yeah.
Muslims come up try to turn me and everything else, and you should go. Well, there's a lot of this in the Bible, and I'm like, and I've even told him like, dude, I don't come to you about the Quran. We finna go out at the
Hmm.
club and enjoy the night. Let's talk about something else. Leave that alone tonight, okay? So you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying
Yeah.
because I'm not that I don't. You may have some valid points, but I'm not in that mode right now, and you know what I'm saying. Like you're not finna deter me from my faith but I'm willing to hear what you got to say, and but right now ain't the time. But
Hmm.
it's just like I said, it's just it's we got 7 billion people on this planet.
Hmm.
A lot of differences of opinions, a lot of differences.
Because you were talking, and it made me think about this guy I've been watching lately. I don't know his name, but I'm on the screen. This guy here.
Okay, yeah, I think I've seen him before. I have seen him before.
So him, him and his group, they they believe in something more so along the lines of how the aliens or how there were people from outer space that came back or that came here and um and basically germinated the waters. Have you ever seen the movie? Oh goodness, it's one of the alien movies. It's the name of the ship. I can't think of the name of it for nothing. But anyway, their mindset is where someone came from outer space. They were our ancestors. They came here. They germinated the waters with, and I heard him earlier because I watched it earlier, and he was saying how they did something with they put something in a dolphin or something to that effect, and it germinated the waters, and that's how the man from Earth came about.
Mhm.
Um, and so, and you got me to thinking along those lines because I said that. So, like, have you seen this guy? Have you heard any of his teachings or anything?
I've necessarily heard his teachings. I have scrolled past his video once or twice. I
No.
remember seeing that face, I believe. And I've heard of like I talked to You know Phil Lott. You know who Phil Lott is, right? Philip
Yeah,
Lott.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yep, Philip.
I had a conversation with him, and they kind of him and he has a group of people. They talk about the Anunnaki. They
Mhm.
also talk about there being a more powerful God than the God that we know.
Yeah.
That the God that we know is a sub God, not, you know what I'm saying, the Almighty. So,
Okay.
and I listened to what he had to say. I mean, I didn't necessarily agree with it, but I listened to it. So,
Of course.
yeah, he told me you had to have an open mind, and then that's the thing about having an open mind. You know what I'm saying? Because the we only use about 10 to 15% of our brain capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the top
Mm-hmm.
people. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, having an open mind when it's concerned into that. You know what I'm saying? It's again, if your faith is your faith, it should be strong enough to stand the test of getting somebody's difference of opinion, understanding somebody's difference of opinion. Okay, all right, well, okay, that's not necessarily what I believe, but
Mm-hmm.
I understand where you're coming from. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, what I came involved with when I came in getting into the apocrypha and everything, what I came involved with, that didn't come from nobody else. Like I wasn't sitting down having a conversation with nobody else. I felt like something was missing when, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
I said, I've read it 5 times, and I still felt like, what is it?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? Like, you know, and then you look at the way the churches are set up in America. Um, we all supposed to be under the same umbrella, but you got churches that's a different denomination that don't fellowship. Like, and
Yeah.
they like a block away from each other. Like, wait a minute, don't we
Yeah.
all name the name of Jesus? Okay, well, they not
Mm-hmm.
doing it right over here. Well, they not doing it right over there. Well, I'm Church of God in Christ. Well, I'm Pentecostal. Well, I'm Seventh-day Adventist. Well, I'm Jehovah's Witness. I'm not. But
Yeah.
we all supposed to be following the same Savior. Is that not correct? Like, okay, I
Yeah.
always look at it as, okay, it's many members, one body. You the foot,
Mm-hmm.
you the hand, you the heart, you the lungs. Like, you know what I'm saying? Okay, but we all supposed to be a part of the body. But what we see is a separation. Just like with, okay, I'm finna go there. Okay. Um, I know we've often had. I've been in a lot of talks. I've seen a lot of videos from Mr. Kevin Samuels. I've seen a lot of them. I've watched a
Mm-hmm.
lot of his videos, and I know he's been a lot. He's pretty harsh. Rest in peace. He was pretty harsh about what he's saying. But if you can get past the harshness and
Mm-hmm.
listen to what he's
Mm-hmm.
talking about, because we can
Mm-hmm.
see what he's talking about in the world today. Whereas, you know, in the 70s, you know, basically fathers were removed from the homes. I grew up in a home without a father. Fortunately, we grew up in a time where you had uncles, you had teachers, you had
Mm-hmm.
cousins, you had, you know what I'm saying, your friends, they had their fathers
Yeah.
around. My friend, that's how I
Yeah.
grew up. So I got to see what it was like to be a man, because I grew up in a house with my 2 sisters and my mom. Well, I was the only man in the house, you know what I'm saying, as a
Yeah.
little boy. So
Mm-hmm.
what has happened is that you see the effects of single women raising young men, because
Mm-hmm.
nowadays you see it as like, okay, when we was growing up, some of your girlfriend broke up with you. Okay, go get a new girl, go get a new chick. Like, what? Okay, all right,
Mm-hmm.
I'm finna go get your homegirl. She been eyeing me anyway. But but now we see girl breaks up with dude. He found out she cheating on him, and he her into self. That's because the young men no longer, which is what motivated me to start my podcast, because the young men don't understand how to be young men. A woman, I'm sorry, but a woman cannot train a man to be a man.
No. No,
Cannot.
she can raise a boy and he can become a man, but she can't guide him in the way of being a man.
Right.
That's something that has to come from a man. And
Exactly.
there's just no getting around it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was kind of the same way, even though my father was there, he went through a bad drug situation.
Mm.
And it caused me at a very young age to have to hop from house to house, family member to family member, never actually having a stable household, and it was during my most impressionable time. It was
Right.
during that whole Emerson time. The whole
Mhm.
time I was at Emerson, I never had a real home. I went from place to place. I bounced. I never stayed in one place for more than a year. And it got so bad that I stopped unpacking my suitcase. When I would
Mm.
go to a new place, I wouldn't unpack my suitcase, and people would get upset with me, and I would tell them, "Unfortunately, I won't be here that long, so there's no point in me unpacking." And that
Mm.
was my mindset. And so it was a lot of things, and that's why I wrote this book I'm getting ready to publish. I just added another chapter to it,
Mm.
but I finalized it, but then added another chapter at the end. So I'm getting ready to publish next week. I grew up as one of those lost children, even
Mm.
though nobody realized it.
Mm.
People on the outside looking in would not have been able to tell that I was one of those children.
Wow.
But yeah, everybody thought, Ant was good. He was, cool dude, and all that stuff. No, no, I was getting my head beat in
Mm.
at home, and that's what made me do this podcast and write the book. Is because there are a lot of young men out here that are going through things and they don't know how to express them. They don't know, they feel like they're alone in it. Not to mention the fact that we have to start talking about things so that we can start healing ourselves. And that's the thing I started doing this year, 2026, January 1st, 2026. I started the healing process. I
Mm.
went back over my life and I started healing every broken part of my life. And
Mm.
I started the process. Of course, it's going to be a long road, but I started identifying them and then healing them one by one.
Mm.
And that's what we have to do as men. We have to say, look, we have to evaluate ourselves and say, hey, this is what happened in my life. Be real with yourself. And you don't have to tell anybody, you don't have to write a book. You don't have to do a podcast, but be real with yourself.
Mm.
Analyze things, analyze your life, talk to a therapist or get into a group of people that are like minded, who have a certain type of mind, who are good people, and talk about those issues.
Right.
This podcast that we started, it helped us tremendously when we did those first two episodes in our relationships, in our
Right.
marriages. It helped us, it made us go back to our wives in a different way, or at least being able to realize things a little bit differently. And it was just through talking, just having conversation with other men about what they're experiencing.
Right. Because iron sharp.
But yeah, um, with this whole faith thing, man, I'm gonna tell you, and I don't know how much you know about me, Johnny, but for years I was a preacher. Okay. I preached the gospel. I preached at multiple churches. I did that whole thing. I went from minister to assistant pastor, all that stuff. Um, and I've been in the back rooms and I've done the traveling across the country, and I've hold the bag of the Kojic preacher, cover his drink and bring it to him. I done all of that.
Me too, by the way. Go
Through
ahead.
yeah, through all of that, um, I've actually come full circle.
Mm.
And I don't talk about my faith right now to a lot of people because where my faith stands is I don't want to mess with anybody else's faith. I want Christians to be Christians. If that's what you believe, be that. Because
Mm.
there are so many great Christian values that I glean, that I take, and I use them as a part of myself, and I'll never change that. Just because my faith may be different now, I still glean all of that information because it's a good way to live, in
Absolutely.
my opinion. But I don't talk about my faith right now because people know who I was, and I don't want to push anyone away from the church or away from God. When I'm ready to talk about it, I will. But I believe that the Christian faith is a great foundation for a lot of people to have. It was a great foundation for me to have throughout my life. I needed it when I needed it,
Right.
and now I'm in a different place.
Mhm.
And so I don't knock anybody's Christian faith. I want them to experience it. I want them to talk to me about it. Let's talk about it. I've been through it all. I want to talk about the book. I understand it for what it is,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to defer you away from your faith, but I don't have a problem talking about it with you either. We can talk
Mhm.
about the scriptures because I can analyze scriptures with the best of them. So we can do that back and forth and all that stuff and have fun. And for me, it's fun, it's educational, but for somebody else, it's a faith thing. And so that's where I am with mine. I'm going to go in deeper than that as time goes,
Right,
so
sure.
that people really understand where I am.
Mhm.
Um, but we have to really look at the Christian faith. We have to really look at it from beginning to end and be smart. And I understand the faith part of it. Faith is not seeing it, but still believing it, that belief. And I understand that part, and that's great. But at a certain point, we have to be intelligent beings and we have to use reality, common sense, science, and history, geology, everything. There's a lot of information, a lot of things you have to pull together in order to find the truth. And that's what I'm a truth seeker, not necessarily I used to be a faith seeker where it was about my heart, but now it's more so about my mind. I've unlocked something that has now taken me to another place.
Mhm.
And so, but like I said, I don't knock anybody for where they are. I want them to be there. Do that because I do believe there's a time for everything. And so I do believe that you're in that place at that point for a reason. You need to learn what you learn and go through what you're going through for a reason. And you'll get to that next level when it's your time.
Right, right,
And if it's never your time, then you'll never get there. And that's just what it is. But that's the life you're going to live. But I want you to enjoy yours.
right. No, no, it's funny you said everything that you just said is a mirror to me. Like, I was preaching at churches. I was deacon. I was a pastor's assistant. Making sure when he go on the road, I'm with him. You know what I'm saying? Preaching in Arizona, preaching out here. You know what I'm saying? In
Mm-hmm.
Indianapolis, as I'm preaching in Hammond. Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I've been all over pretty much all over the globe. Teaching the Christian faith, and I'm kind of the same place with it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as not even calling myself that
Yeah.
again anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't affiliate myself as a Christian.
Mm-mm.
I am a believer, but I'm also a realist. I also understand
Yeah.
that all the stuff that's here was put here for us to put it together and work it because science got its place. Common sense has its place. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta and I've seen what people are like when they don't have common sense. I've seen what that's like. Whether you got Christian faith or not, you're gonna need common sense. And,
Yeah.
and and that's another thing that's lacking in the world as we continue to move forward. Like in America, our young men are graduating with a fourth grade reading level.
Mm.
They're
Mm.
just and now it's the no one held back rule though. Now you're just pushing people through, and it's like
We
what
held my son back. We held him back because after COVID, after they had that year or year or two or whatever it was, of virtual learning, I knew he wasn't ready.
right, right. And I remember having to stop my son. I'm like, nope, you're not ready. No, I remember
Hmm.
doing that. I remember having to stop my child, and my child, no, he's not ready. He's not ready to,
Hmm.
he's not ready to make that move. I know y'all trying to force him through, but he's not ready for that. I know he's not ready. Like when he was on the freshman basketball team, and you know what I'm saying, his grades wasn't right. I told him before school started, I said, your grades go down, I'm gonna pull you. I don't care what the coach gonna do. I'm going to pull you off the team because I need you to focus on your education. You're going to need that. You're going to need to be educated as a black man. You're going to need it when you grow up. And you just and to this day, he still thanks me for that. He thanks me for
Yeah,
pulling him and stopping. He just turned 24 yesterday. So
that's what's up.
yeah, so and he called me from work from his job. He's doing a security job in Arizona. He's taking care of himself. My daughter, she's taking care of herself. So I totally agree with what you just said. Like it's like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
I know my child ain't ready, and that's what they want to. They want to push them through, just like what the motive or the narrative has been. Black men are deadbeats, which is one
Hmm.
of the biggest fallacies or lies
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
told. Um,
Yeah.
but the thing about it is that even the scripture talks about, in order for a thief to take over the house, got to first bind the strong man. First, you got to get the men out the house. Then we can use the women, we can use their emotions and manipulate them because they're emotional creatures. So we can use their emotions to manipulate them. And nowadays, you know what I'm saying? People don't understand like marriage is the goal. If marriage is not the goal, like what are we doing? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're not, I
Wasting
don't
time.
I know I've been in these streets. I call my dirty 30s because I was married once and we got a divorce. And I went through the 30s and I wilded out. I was in this club, that club, with this one, that one. You know what I'm saying? I did all of that. And now that I have found my queen, I'm not gonna let her go, and I'm not gonna let nobody else stop me because I know what that is. I already know what it is now. It's okay. Yeah, I get the quick feeling, but what
Then
is
it's over.
and plus these women crazy, women,
That and then these women out here, yeah, like you said, you're gonna get with them for a hot second. You're gonna feel good. You're gonna do all that, but then what's left? Like that 9 times out of 10, she can't cook. 9 times out of 10, she can't be a good mother.
mm,
9 times out of 10, she has no business sense. None of that.
she
And
don't got no.
so all she is a big button to smile. There's no point. So it's I learned in my younger days, or not necessarily in my younger days. It took me a while to learn that too, but I had to learn it was cheap. It's cheaper to keep her, and then, you know, I had a pastor, the very first pastor, the pastor who gave me my initial invitation to the ministry. He
Mhm.
used to tell me, "Hey, dress up your own Christmas tree." He would say, take your Christmas tree as plain as it is.
Mm.
Yeah, that other person's Christmas tree might look all great and nice, and it's got all the stuff on it, and it's blinging and shining, and yours might be plain. But all you got to do is dress it up. You take the time and help her become what it is that you enjoy looking at. You have to invest some time into your woman, just like she has to invest time in you. And that's will help you to create that thing, or at least decrease that initial reaction to go out there in the streets, you know.
It's and then there's the spiritual aspect of it, like the soul
Hmm.
ties and everything else. Is like, I didn't realize how much I had adjoined myself to a whole bunch of attitudes, to a whole bunch of. I actually had like an experience where I just looked at myself. I was like, I don't do stuff like that. Where'd that come from? Where did you know what I'm saying? But again, that's why originally it was only meant for the sex was only meant for marriage. But you again, this is a part of the growth of being a man, becoming a man, a solid man with a solid foundation. You go through these, you bump your head, you hit your head. It seemed like for a while I was always on conquer missions, conquer, 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 conquer.
Hmm.
But God had to sit me down. Yeah, I will say that He did. He did do that. When I got sick and I was in the hospital, like I'm talking about every joint, every
Hmm.
knuckle, every bending point in my body,
Hmm.
from my head to my toes,
Hmm.
was inflamed. So I had to go
Hmm.
to the hospital. I couldn't walk. I had to go to the hospital. Now, my wife we weren't married at the time, but she had left Arizona to go work because she's a traveling phlebotomist. So she went to Connecticut to go work out there. And we had just met,
Hmm.
so it wasn't like we didn't have no ties to each other. Um, but I had a whole bunch of women that was with me. I had women that was in Arizona, and only maybe two
Hmm.
came to check on me. And one of them was my
Hmm.
kid's mom, and I had to give her gas to do that, to bring the kids up to see me because they was worried about me. So it was like,
Hmm.
When I tell you I had a nice little stable, and he was people that I'd have been around for years, like decades. I didn't My kids done play with your kids, like you know what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
I think we friends, even if we not together no more, we should be friends enough for you to, you know what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
my wife, who I just met the month before, was I told her where I was, and every day from Connecticut, she was on them nurses' heads, making sure,
Hmm.
no, y'all doing this
Hmm.
wrong. Y'all doing this wrong. No. And
Yeah.
again, we not in a relationship. This just, we came together for a month and then she was going about her way. I was coming back here to do something else. So
Hmm.
it showed me, and then God had to show, he had to let me see, like, look, you first of all, you tearing your body up with
Hmm.
all these women.
Hmm.
You are tearing your body up. Just let you know.
Hmm.
Secondly, as you can see, when it comes down to it and when you need some help, you don't have any. You need to be looking at who gonna have your back. And that's after a while, that's what it boils down to. Like, well, who's gonna take care of me? I look at my mom, and God rest my mom, my soul. She's still alive, but she had a stroke
Hmm.
like 4 or 5 years ago. And
Hmm.
she's been she still can't use the left side of her body, so she's in a nursing home. So of course, we visit. She's still up in Portage somewhere. Miller's Manor, I believe it's called.
Okay.
Meanwhile, so she's by herself because she's made some decisions. So she's by herself and she ain't got nobody to take care of her. Flip side of
Hmm.
that, my dad got remarried in '93, and he's been with his wife ever since. And he's got somebody, having somebody to watch your back, like having somebody to take care of you, having somebody you can take care of, that you, like you said, you feed into and you eat from, somebody to reflect,
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
reflect, to reflect the image of God that we see, and reflect the image of strength, of self, of, what I'm saying, this is my rib, this is my, what I'm saying, my part
Hmm.
of me. So having somebody, not just, I mean, of course, love, but having somebody that's really going to be down for you is the key.
Hmm.
It's the ticket. You know what I'm saying? Because I swear I remember I didn't cut kids heads. Done all this
Hmm.
stuff, and I couldn't find a friend nowhere. I was in disbelief. I was shocked. I just knew some of some of the main people that I thought I just knew they was gonna come check on me. Just come up here 10 minutes. That's all you ain't even got to stay long. But
Yeah.
I wasn't important enough. But I was important enough to her. You know what I mean? So
That's when you
and
know.
and and
That's
even
when you know that you got a good one. You know what I mean? I feel you. I fell sick too a couple years ago. Um, I almost died. I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks, and I've got this disease called blastomycosis, and it pretty much like it's a bronchial kind of disease, but when it spreads, it can cause like a lot of vitamin deficiencies, and all kinds of things. I lost a lot of weight. I went down to 107 pounds. Yeah, I was 107 and had to be admitted into the hospital. And I almost died, man. And it was something because I had already been with my wife for, I'd say about 14 years already. And so I knew she always had but when I was in there, she turned into a whole different beast. She was
mm,
on those nurses like you would never, because she's a nurse herself. And
my
so
wife too. Yeah.
yeah, so she was on them like nobody's business. I mean, she was on them every single day. But that's substance. Those are women that have substance. They're not hollow. They don't have, they're
Yeah.
not just for show. They
That's a
have
heavy
a
word.
lot on the inside.
That's a heavy
What'd you
word.
say?
That hollow word. That's a heavy word you get used, because that's really what it is. Somebody with some substance on the inside of them. They just not hollow. I was messing around with a bunch of hollows, and when I found the one that had substance, I cut everybody off. All right, nope, nope, nope,
Mm-hmm.
nope, nope, nope. Change the phone number. Nope. Even and I have never been able to build a long distance relationship. Even when I moved back here to Gary and she was still in Connecticut, we was building. She got all of my attention. I nobody was worth me messing this up. Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and it was just that's I've heard Steve Harvey say this once. He said, "There is one woman that a man will lay down everything he doing for,
Mm-hmm.
and she is that woman. She is that woman for me.
Yeah.
Made me lay down
Yeah.
everything, lay it all down, push it all away. Ain't none of y'all worth me messing up this. Even when I was working up in Gary, and I was working at Teleperformance." And boy, the thirst was real, boy. They was at me, bro. They was chasing me all around. I couldn't even walk around. It was like, but I was just like, nope, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm
Yeah.
not doing it. I'm not gonna mess
Yeah.
that up because if 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 there's one thing that I do know, what you sow, you're gonna reap. What
And
you
that's just the natural law
Yeah,
of things, you know.
yeah.
And that's the thing. There are a lot of things that are in the Bible that are not so much as spiritual things, but that have been made to become spiritual things. But
Hmm.
they're natural law of nature type stuff that you see in nature, stuff that
Right.
you see in just life. And it's like, and but we a lot of times we put when we're in the Christian faith or when we're in any faith, we put it as a testament to God, or it's a faith thing. But like giving and receiving, giving and receiving is actually a natural law of nature. Rivers themselves do the same thing. They become stagnant when they can't push water out.
Right.
The water becomes poison and you can't drink it, when it doesn't have a way to flow through. But
Right.
yeah, and we see that in just so many things. When things can't flow, they can't
Mhm.
stay fresh, they can't
Right.
continue anew, they can't continue growing and become more and more and more.
Right.
And that's just the law of nature. It's not a
Right.
faith thing. Now you
Right.
can use it as a faith thing, as a I can't think of the word. What do they call it when we tell the little stories? A parable. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
use it as a parable,
Right.
but it's not. It's you're using it as a parable, but it's just a law of nature.
Right. Yeah. The energy you put out is the energy coming back.
Yeah.
So I had to cut everybody out and like, look, it's just us, just me and her. And it's been that way ever since. We done been through our ups and downs. It was almost over for a second, but we fought through it. And
Yeah.
if if having a lifelong companion is not the goal, what's the point?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you get to a place in your life where, and like I said, as I was using my mom and my dad, it's like he's had a pacemaker for about 20 years, but he's 80 and still vibrant, still living, still moving around, still kicking it or whatever. You know what I'm saying? We still have drinks every once in a while. I have a drink with him, shot with him when I come into town or he come down here. He drove down here to bring me a desk, and it was the last thing he ever built in his life. And he brought it to me. So,
Okay. Oh, that's
but
great.
he's still moving around like that because he has his wife with him.
Hmm.
Not just God in his life, but his wife with him. And
Yes.
having
Yes.
having the companion, the partner, the helpmeet with you gives you extra life. It gives you extra years. I tell my wife quite often, I said, baby, you have no idea how much a power up it is to me when you tell me you trust and believe in. Just that simple,
Hmm.
those simple little phrases. That's like, I don't care
Hmm.
if I'm holding the world on my shoulders. When I know I got you with me,
Hmm.
It's it's
Yeah.
it's a power up to your husband. You are.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of women say, men are the head, women are the neck.
Hmm.
We
Show
keep
us,
and,
point us. Yeah.
and what is the main purpose of the neck? To hold the head up. That's the
Yes.
main purpose, to hold the head up. So
That's it.
it's and so when you find that, you know what I'm saying, and it's like this is for me, you know what I'm saying? Nobody else can fill this void. Nobody else can. see this, so can push this. This is
Mm-hmm.
the person. This is the person that I've been searching for, and that's it for me. I'm out the game. I don't you know what I'm saying, I don't got time because and then you get to a certain age where you're like, okay, she looked good, but she just another piece of, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And as men, we have to, and we talked about this on another show. You weren't in on it, Johnny, but we talked about abstinence and how to abstain from doing those things, going out there and cheating on your wife and doing all that kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
you know, I just don't put myself in a position. I keep myself in the house
Yeah,
90% of the time.
yeah.
But I just when I'm in a position where or when I'm like that's why it took me a second to make the decision on whether I was going to go to that event, that class reunion. I knew I wanted to go to the meet and greet, see everybody real quick,
Mhm.
but I said, part of me keeping myself in position is keeping myself out of positions. And so I said, I'm just gonna, it was cool to see y'all, love y'all, all that. I want y'all to see I'll support y'all, I'll pay the money just to support y'all, and then that's it. Cause I don't want to spend too much time in places rekindling mindsets that I used to have back in the day.
True that.
And then next thing you know, that thing starts to permeate and grow. And next thing you know, I'm back doing the old ant stuff. And that's what I'll never want to get back to. And
Right.
so I could just, and it's not so much as I'm gonna live my life in fear because I do things and I will go and do things, but the less or yeah, the less time I spend out there putting myself in those positions, the better it is for me. Um, Even though I feel like I have the willpower to do, to abstain and to do all that, why put myself in the position?
Right. Yeah,
You
every once in a while I go out with the fellas sometimes, you know what I'm saying? My bros I grew up with.
know.
Um
Hmm.
Now, matter of fact, I think when we went to Screaming Wheels, one of my homeboys that I was with, he's down here and I hang out with him sometimes. He's still single. Um, but I mean, and I think he understands this too. We don't hang around each other as often as we did when we was kids because, I'm a married man and he's not. So,
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah,
do single man stuff. I can come over,
yeah,
we'll kick it, you know what I'm saying, every once in a while we'll, talk a little bit,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But other than that, we watch football, watch sports or whatever. But when it comes time to, going out and going to the clubs, I might go kick it every once in a while, but I know I'm going home. I'm going to the crib. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? But
yeah,
I don't do that on the regular. That's like once a
yeah,
year. It's like that's
yeah,
like that's like, when if we're going out, he don't even ask me. You know what I'm saying? They be like, well, we finna
yeah,
go out over here. I'll be like, all right, cool. Well, I catch y'all later. I'll see you tomorrow. Football game. I'll be over there. So you know
yeah,
what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah,
still keeping the camaraderie of brotherhood, but at the same time understanding like I'm not gonna disrespect my house because again, you reap what you sow. I don't want my house disrespected. I
yeah,
my
yeah,
first
yeah.
marriage, I was cheated on. I've been through that. And she got pregnant by
Hmm.
somebody else.
Mm,
So I've been through that. I know what
mm,
that feel like. And my
mm,
wife, she was cheated on with her ex-husband and he got somebody else pregnant. So we kind of
mm.
it was almost like the perfect situation for both of us because we
Yeah,
both understood what that meant. So
yeah,
we know how it felt to be the person that's getting cheated on, which helps us when the thought or the seed tries to get planted about cheating. No, we're not going to do that
yeah,
because
yeah.
because cheating, divorce is a form of death. It really is. It's a form of death. I remember going through my divorce and I remember dying to my way of thinking because I was always
Mm-hmm.
thinking as a married man, I'm thinking like who I got to take care of.
Yeah.
I got things to do, but now I got to think like a single man. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
married man anymore. So you have to die to that. And that death is not, it is painful. It is very painful. It's very,
Yeah.
especially when you feel like or believe that you try to do everything that you were supposed to do right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's a painful experience. You know, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone to go through it because it's not
I've
for
been divorced.
yeah,
I'm a divorcee. I've had it this is my second marriage. Now
right,
my first marriage, um, it was a little different because it was one of those situations where, when you're in the small church and yeah, you know how that you already know the line that I'm going down. So,
right.
when you're in the small church and you start going to the small church and you start being a preacher and they're looking at you like, okay, well, you can't be a single preacher. That's pretty much the law. They're like, you
Right.
can't be a single preacher. And so they kind of push you in the direction of being married. And and at that time, I was still very young. I was still in my 20s, in my early 20s.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, and I'm frisky, so I'm ready to go. And so, but I was gung ho for God though too. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And so it was like, I want to do what God. And so next to I ended up marrying my pastor's sister.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah. I married my pastor's sister and we were not a good match. We were not a
Ooh.
good match. We
Yeah.
liked each other. We
Hmm.
had fun together, but we just were not a good match at all. Um, and I was not physically attracted to her.
Mm.
I was not physically attracted to her, and I didn't realize how much of a problem that would become. I thought, oh, I can work through that. Hey, she can cook and clean, she can do all that good stuff. And so she had, I was like, she got all the basics. So I was like, I should be good. That don't work out. If
Hmm.
you don't have that passion for your mate, it's going to cause a domino effect of
Yes.
issues.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to, and that's why I had that. I think our first podcast or second podcast was about sex in a marriage and how you have to that whole thing because that can affect marriage becoming strong. Now,
Hmm.
once it becomes strong, it may be a different situation. You may be able to slack off and things may be okay.
Yeah.
But a lot of times in the beginning, depending on who you are in the situation, it has to be you have to have that passion because that passion helps with so many other things too. When you're
Yeah.
going through some of those arguments, when you're going through some of these issues, when you still got that passion, you can still bring that heat it that closeness allows you to forget all the rest and then be able to work on it easily. So I ended up marrying her and it was not a good fit. And I, unfortunately, I should have been man enough to, because I knew going into it, I knew walking down the aisle, I'm saying to myself, Anthony, why are you doing this? As I'm walking down the aisle. And so we did all of that and we ended up divorcing not long after we got married because it just didn't work, you know. And and then guess who was pushed out the church because they can't they can't have a instead of working with us through it, we're family. We're all supposed to be family. And so instead of working with us through it, they decided to have me leave the church. And I understand a part of it. The people in the congregation are not going to want to listen to a preacher that just got divorced. I'm a young preacher. Those type of Kojic starch type people aren't going to listen to nobody like that. And
Yeah.
so but instead of just sitting me down and saying, "Hey, you just can't preach for a while until you get yourself together or whatever," they decided to ask me to leave. So that ended up affecting my Christian walk
Mm.
because my pastor who was a brother, he was like a brother and we were very, very, very close, kind of threw me out, threw me out on the streets. And like I said, I understand, that was his sister. And but again, we had long talks about it. We discussed it in depth and he fully understood what was happening and he knew his sister too.
Mhm.
That was one of the things that started my what's the word that they use? Deconstruction. My deconstruction. Um, that was the first thing, and then from there it was just a domino effect of churches not really showing the love of God,
Mm.
not showing what they were preaching. They were preaching one thing, but they were doing the complete opposite. And I've been the preacher who was the young preacher who wore the jeans and the shirt, who wore the
Mhm.
jeans and the button-down shirt with a blazer,
Yep.
and I was that preacher, and I was ostracized for it. I
Mhm.
was pulled into a meeting with all the other ministers. The pastor wasn't there, and they read me the riot act pretty much, and basically said I wasn't like them, and was basically trying to tell me to leave
Mhm.
because I had a youthful aspect on things. I listened to people like Ty Tribbett. I listened to people like Tone and all of that stuff back in the day. Because that was, I like a more funky style of music, not Mahalia Jackson, you know. And so, but I went through all of that and a whole lot more because
Mhm.
that's in my book. But the me and my wife, before we got married, we had marriage counseling with the assistant pastor and his wife. And we told them, I told them because I've always been a very open and honest guy. And so when the assistant pastor asked us, had we had sex before? We said yes. We had made the mistake, we had sex, and we had repented from it and moved forward from it. We asked God to forgive us, and we had moved forward from that point and hadn't had sex since then.
Mhm.
Um, we had moved forward from that point, and what they did after I told them that, they sat me down. They sat me down in the ministry, told me I couldn't preach. They told me they didn't say I couldn't preach because I hadn't preached period at that church. They told me I couldn't sit with the ministers. Okay. So I had to sit in another place away from the ministers, which then caused whispers and all that stuff. Why he not sitting with the ministers? What's going on with them? What's going on with Anthony? So now nobody's faith in me has now shaken because they know something. They know I done something wrong. So
Wow.
you deal with that whole thing, and then they asked me to go to school, and they say, okay, none of my preachers will preach a sermon until they go to school. So I go to school. I go to school. They said, we're going to help you financially. I say, great. I come to them for financial help? Of course not. The finance minister tells me, you should be a man and take care of your responsibilities. I said, you told me to go to school and you said you would help me. Now, mind you, I had a job that was going to give me tuition reimbursement, but I had to pay for it up front, and then I would give them the money back. I was gonna give the church the money back once the job paid me my tuition reimbursement. Guess what? I was on the phone with the finance minister sitting at my job. I was working in some company. I was doing customer service, and there was a African girl sitting right behind me. She heard me on the phone, and she heard how frustrated and distraught I sound. And she asked me, "Hey, Anthony, what's up?" And so I told her exactly what happened. She paid my tuition. She paid my tuition and told me don't give her the money back. She said, do not give me that money back. And I was like, what? And I'm just like, the kindness of strangers
Wow.
over the church.
Mm.
And so,
Man, listen, I remember going, I remember I was deacon at this church. One of my best friends, his father was a pastor. He made me a deacon. I had been here for quite some time. And I was teaching Sunday school and everything else. I was, you know, And then they was like, well, you single, you need to have a wife. Well, they threw one young lady at me, and she had a baby daddy, and she didn't know if she could be loyal to me as a baby daddy because I had taken a note of celibacy. I for
Mm-hmm.
like for like a year, almost a year, I didn't do anything. I
Mm-hmm.
stopped because I wanted this decision to be correct.
Yeah.
So we talked for about a month, and then she was like, I gotta go see my baby daddy, and I don't know if I could pass this test. I said, well, okay, well, if you don't think we're gonna pass this test, then we don't need to be talking about because I'll be damned if even as a preacher, I come home from, what I'm saying, you supposed to be hanging out with the baby, letting I'm not gonna stop a man from seeing his daughter. But
Mm-hmm.
y'all supposed to be, having family time, what I'm saying, with the baby, and I come home and y'all in my bed. I'm not, I'm probably
Mm-hmm.
gonna go to prison. So
Yeah.
okay, so we
Yeah.
gonna let that one go. Then they threw
Yeah.
another young lady at me. She was single, didn't have no kids, whatever. She was a little bit older than me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then I found out she was watching kids for one of the sisters in the church, and she was having sex with her husband.
Mm.
And that wasn't even the biggest issue. What the biggest issue was is that I was working a job, and then I transferred over to another job through the church. The matter of fact, the husband she was sleeping with got me the job,
Mm-hmm.
the second job, and she started calculating my checks, and and it's crazy because I calculated both of the checks that she was gonna get, and she right before that. So it was like God was to me, it was God showing me, look, calculate these checks because you need to know these numbers. I'm like, well, I need to know these numbers for. But then she calculated my checks, and I'm like, wait a minute, you not only are you, but now you count my money. Yeah, no, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no, yeah, no. Look,
Yes.
pass on that one. Then they try to give me another young lady. She had two kids by one of my childhood friends. And I was just like, you know what? I'm done with y'all at this church. Y'all don't have a wife for me here. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how I got with my kid's mom, my ex-wife, because
Cool.
she was kind of rough around the edges, kind of thuggish, kind of, you know what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
but she was willing to learn. So
Mm-hmm.
we fornicated, and they sat me down. I had to stand in front of the church and confess what I did and everything else, and they sat me down, and I couldn't do nothing. Like, and every church service that we went to this church. We continued to go to this church faithfully. Every church service that we went to, no matter what he was preaching about, he started talking about fornication, and he'd be looking dead
Yes.
at me.
Yes. I'm laughing because that's exactly what happened to me.
he was like, I don't care what he was talking about, prosperity, and all of a sudden it shifted to fornication, and then I'm looking, he eyeballing me like, "Ugh." I'm like, whoa,
Yes.
whoa.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we got married, and then what I'm saying, they let me, what I'm saying, because we kind of, now I've corrected it. So what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now, they let me get back up. But it was just, again, I've been through, and then that same preacher wound up like 3 years later kicking us out. So because we told him there was some people in his church that was gonna split it up, and a month later they split. After he kicked us out, a month later, his brother took half his church and they started another.
Oh wow. See, see, see.
So
As they say, God don't like ugly.
ain't too kind of cute neither, but
Yeah.
so it was, what I'm saying. So what everything that you said, that you just said just now, I'm like, wow, I swear I've been through the same thing. Why is he describing my life right now? Why is he talking?
Me too. I'm like, man, that's the same exact thing I went to. And then when we when we got married, I still think I was sat down at the time. As a matter of fact, I was still sat down, and I couldn't figure out why they still had me sat down. But and then it came to the point where it was like you said, it was Sunday after Sunday, man, and we sitting there to the point where, mind you, I told you he said we weren't preaching until we went to a school, right? So I went to school, and then his daughter got married to a guy. That guy came in, and he became a minister. He preached his first sermon before I did. before I got a chance to preach. Mind you,
Mhm.
I had already been there. I had already
Right.
been there and in school.
Right.
This guy hadn't even started school. I think he had just started school.
Mhm.
Had just started school, and then they let him preach his message. And that was like the straw. And I was sitting there and and he preached his sermon. And then I think we came back one more Sunday after that because I wasn't going to leave. I told my wife because this was my wife's church home. She was raised in this church. She was in this church since she was like 15 or something like that. And so I was not going to take her from her church. And so I told her I was going to bear it as long as I possibly could. But it was her. The next Sunday, it was one of those situations again where he got up to preach, and then all of a sudden he started talking about me for some odd reason. And my wife looked at me during the message. She looked at me. She said, "Let's go." And we got up right in the middle of service and walked out, and we never came back.
Mhm.
She saw the pain I was in. She saw what was going on. She realized it for herself. And that's a wife. That's a strong woman who will take that and say, "No, I'm not going to let you suffer anymore.
Right.
And I'm going to take you away from this situation."
When she takes, you know what I'm saying? Because that was a similar situation, that kind of like what happened with us. It was just like we had started to fellowship with different people, and we got into a community choir, and we started moving around and seeing, going to different churches and seeing different places, and it was just like, I prayed one Sunday. It was at church. She went downstairs. She had my daughter. She went downstairs. They help and prepare the food before, before we have worship service. And I'm praying because I'm finna start Sunday school in about an hour. So I'm sitting there praying,
Mhm.
and I heard it. The voice said, "Get up and leave."
Mhm.
And I'm like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, what? Get up and leave. And I sat there for about 5 minutes, and I was just like, I was stuck. I couldn't believe it. I was like, and I went downstairs and I pulled her to the side and I said, okay, my daughter's name's Sabrina. I said, grab Sabrina. I'm finna grab Sabrina, grab everything that you need. We're finna leave right now. We're going somewhere else.
Mhm.
We already found
Mhm.
another place to go. We're going somewhere else. We out of here. And we
Mhm.
didn't tell nobody what was going on. We just got up, walked out, and left. It was just like, nope, that's it. That's it. That's all.
Mhm.
And then, I had
Did
been waiting
anybody
on my,
call you? Did
yeah,
did did anybody call you from the church after you left?
absolutely. Matter of fact, I have been asking my pastor to come bless our home
Mhm.
for about 5, 6 months, and he would never come.
Mhm.
After he realized that I hadn't been in service for about 2, 3 days, he finally
Mhm.
showed up to my house to tell
Mhm.
me I was wrong for leaving and everything else. And you know what I'm saying? And I nodded and I smiled and I, you know what I'm saying, everything. And I was just like, he left. So he felt like he had got a victory or whatever. And as soon as I closed the door, I said, we still not going back. We done. I was just like, oh, I thought you was gonna go. No, 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 not going back. I don't need it. You know what I'm saying? I don't. I understand how he feel about it. You know what I'm saying? And finally, I had to leave for you to actually come to my house and bless my house, because that's what I believed at the time. I believed that when the man of God come
Yeah.
bless my house and anoint the doors,
Mhm.
bless my house. But now you know where I live. You can finally get to my house. You know what I'm saying? After 6 months of
Mhm.
me being here, because
Yeah.
I left, and we
Yeah.
still not going back. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I visited a few times since then. You know what I'm saying? Even since we've been back here, I
Mhm.
visited just to say hello. But no, bro, like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna, we're great where we are. I'm grateful for the move. God had moved us to another space. This is where our time here has ended. And
Yeah.
a lot of times these preachers don't understand it. You know what I'm saying? If God tell you it, okay, so what you tell him, so basically what he was telling me was, as long as I'm following what God tell him, I'm following the right path. But God tell me to do something on my own because he want me to go do something else. Did he not tell Abraham, look, get away from your kindred into a land that I'm gonna show you, a land flowing with milk and honey. Just go.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
get away from all the people get out of your comfort zone, and I'm gonna show you
Mhm.
where I need you to be.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm not a man of God because I'm not following what he's told you. Okay, that's control. That's
Mm-hmm.
rebellion. Rebellion is witchcraft. Yeah, I'm not finna go back over there. So, it was a learning experience, boy. It was something else. It was crazy. It was insane. I couldn't, you know what I'm saying? It was, and I've been through several churches since then. I've met a few men of God. I met a nice man of God in Arizona, real good man of God. We still talk to this day. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Met a few others. You know what I'm saying, around the country, but it was just. I mean, and even to this day, the whole setup of church, you know what I'm saying? I'm not knocking anybody that goes. I'm not knocking anybody that continues to go and believes what you believe, because I was there once too. You know what I'm saying? I
Mm-hmm.
was
Yeah.
there at
Yeah.
one time too, so I can't knock you for doing that. I'm just
No. Mm-mm.
just understand, for me, that's not what it is. It's not that.
No.
It's just not
No.
that anymore. It's not,
Mm-mm.
God has sent me on a different path. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's not the I'm grateful that it's not the path that everybody else chooses, because I'm sorry, from what I've seen, just like with the Marvin Sapp, close the doors, the Marvin Winans, the embarrassing a lady over $2,000. You know what I'm saying? And she brought him 1,200. Well, I asked for 2,000. That's not what I asked for. You also didn't give her that money back neither. You still kept that money and put it in your pocket, or put it in the, you know what I'm
See?
saying, to Juanita Bynum, telling people
Yeah.
it's 21 people in here that owe $1,066 that God want to bless your life. But the thing about it is, even all these denominations were started, you know what I'm saying, as a form of separation. And that's what you see all over this country. Like, even in the Black community, it's like 50 Black churches, but for every church, it's a liquor store.
Yep.
And
Yep.
if for for,
These.
for y'all to have so many churches, where is the power? Where is the deliverance? Where is the change? I done seen, this people ride. I used to be riding the buses to church, riding the bus with my kids, riding the bus with, you know what I'm saying? And when I need some help, I can't look for it. I can't come to y'all. I can't ask you. You know what I'm saying? That the church
Yeah.
is not the building, it's the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And somewhere in America, they've turned it into the building.
Yeah. 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 It ends up coming down to financial things and
Right.
pride things. They want
Mhm.
to do things their way. So now they got to branch off, or they're
Right.
not getting paid. So now they got to branch off. That's why when you really start to really analyze this stuff and look at these pastors and preachers for what they really are, some of them are great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Some of them
Agree.
are real pavement pounders, and they go out there and they do what they need to do. They're the preachers of old, where it was more about the community and going
Right.
out there and getting the job done than it
Absolutely.
was trying to get people in the door, get them emotionally riled up so
Right.
that they can pull out their pocketbook and give out the money. And don't get me wrong, they are getting a benefit because I believe a lot of churches just it's therapy. It's
Mhm. Yeah.
therapy that allows you to move on. It gives you the mental capacity to last another week or to deal with things, make things a little bit easier.
Right.
Um, and so a lot of times that's what it boils down to. But like I said, I don't knock people. Do your thing, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
But we're gonna go ahead and close it down right here, brother.
And now I'm extremely grateful that we can get together like this and share,
Yes,
sharpen
sir.
iron, share opinions, share facts, share, you know what I'm saying, share, because not enough men talk anymore. We don't talk
Yes.
anymore. We don't speak anymore. We don't talk about problems that we're having, issues that we're having. We don't, you know what I'm saying? Because that, even now, you just having this conversation today helped me deal with something that I was dealing with earlier. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you, little bro. And you know what I'm saying?
No
Like,
problem.
keep doing it, man. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yes, sir.
Bye.